When we speak of daring space missions, perhaps none shines brighter in human history than Apollo 11, the journey that carried men across nearly 240 miles of void and placed their boots upon the lunar soil. It is almost impossible today, in a world overflowing with advanced technologies, supercomputers, satellites, and global internet, to truly imagine the audacity it required. In 1969, humanity's understanding of space travel was still in its fragile infancy. Rockets had only been flying for a little more than a decade, computers were the size of rooms and weaker than the device in your pocket, and astronauts were more explorers than engineers, stepping into a realm with no guarantee of safe return. Yet, despite every uncertainty, Apollo 11 succeeded, etching forever the proof that mankind could reach beyond Earth and set foot on another world. The story of Apollo 11 is one not just of a mission, but of a vision born in the crucible of rivalry and ambition. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union set the stage. When the Soviets launched Sputnik in 1957, the first artificial satellite to orbit Earth, it stunned the world. A metallic sphere emitting simple beeps became the symbol of a new age, and for the United States, it became a challenge to meet and surpass. Soon after, the Soviets followed with Yuri Gagarin, the first human to orbit Earth in 1961, leaving America trailing in a race that seemed unwinnable. It was at this moment that President John F. Kennedy, standing before Congress in May of 1961, declared that the United States would commit itself to sending a man to the moon and returning him safely to Earth before the decade was out. It was a bold promise, one that many scientists thought was reckless, but it lit a fire under NASA and transformed space exploration from dream to determination. 8 years later, that dream became reality with Apollo 11. The spacecraft itself was an engineering marvel of the time, consisting of the Saturn V rocket, the command module Columbia, and the lunar module Eagle. The Saturn V stood taller than a 36-story building, the most powerful rocket ever built, capable of generating thrust to escape Earth's gravity well. The astronauts who would ride it, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, were men chosen not only for skill but for character. They trained relentlessly, prepared for every possible malfunction, and understood that their mission might demand the ultimate sacrifice. Yet they carried with them the hopes of millions. On July 16, 1969, the Saturn V lifted off from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The roar of its engines shook the ground for miles, as if the Earth itself were reluctant to let go of its children. Millions watched live, their hearts suspended between awe and fear. If the rocket failed, if it exploded in the sky as some had feared, it would not just be a loss of lives. It would be a crushing blow to human ambition. Yet the rocket soared, and Columbia, carrying the 3 astronauts, entered Earth orbit before firing again to begin the 3-day voyage to the moon. The journey itself was both serene and perilous. Outside their spacecraft stretched the silent void, a darkness so complete that even the stars seemed faint against it. The astronauts communicated with Earth, carried out experiments, and prepared themselves for the most dangerous part of the mission, the landing. When Apollo 11 entered lunar orbit, Collins remained in Columbia to pilot the command module, while Armstrong and Aldrin climbed into the Eagle, detaching and beginning their descent toward the lunar surface. It was here that the true daring of Apollo 11 revealed itself. The descent was plagued with problems. Computer alarms went off, confusing signals that threatened to abort the landing. The lunar module was descending toward a field of boulders and craters far too hazardous for a safe touchdown. Armstrong, with only seconds of fuel left, had to take manual control, guiding Eagle away from the danger and steering toward a safer patch of ground. At that moment, the world held its breath. Would they crash? Would the first attempt to land humans on another world end in disaster? Then came the words, "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." Relief and triumph swept across the globe. The moment Armstrong stepped onto the surface, he spoke words that would echo for eternity. "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Yet even beyond the poetry of his phrase, the image itself, the sight of a human being standing on a world that was not Earth, changed forever what humanity believed it could achieve. Buzz Aldrin soon joined him, and together they planted the American flag, collected samples, and set up experiments. Their footprints pressed into the powdery regolith remain untouched to this day, silent witnesses to humanity's greatest daring. The return was no less dangerous. After their historic walk, Armstrong and Aldrin ascended in the Eagle, reconnecting with Collins in Columbia. Together, the three began the journey home, re-entering Earth's atmosphere at blazing speeds, their heat shield the only barrier between life and fiery destruction. Finally, on July 24, they splashed down safely in the Pacific Ocean, greeted as heroes. The mission had been completed. Kennedy's bold promise had been kept. Humanity had walked on the moon. What makes Apollo 11 the most daring of space missions is not only the technical risk, but the psychological courage. These astronauts knew that failure was more likely than success. There were contingency speeches written in case they did not return. The world knew it might watch men die on live television, and yet they went. They boarded that rocket not with certainty, but with resolve. Daring, in its truest sense, is stepping forward when the outcome is unknown, and Apollo 11 embodied that spirit. The impact of Apollo 11 rippled across generations. It was not just an American victory, it was a human victory. People from all nations watched, cheered, and dreamed. For a brief moment, the divisions of politics, geography, and ideology seemed to fade, replaced by the realization that humanity had proven itself capable of leaving its cradle. The daring of Apollo 11 was not confined to astronauts and engineers. It inspired ordinary people to believe in progress, in exploration, and in the strength of collective will. In retrospect, the tools they carried seem primitive compared to modern standards. The onboard computer had less processing power than a modern calculator. The guidance systems, the life support systems, even the communication relays were fragile by today's measure, and yet human ingenuity compensated. Engineers on Earth worked tirelessly to troubleshoot, to simulate failures, to design backup systems. The astronauts themselves were not passengers. They were trained pilots, scientists, and troubleshooters, ready to adapt in moments of crisis. It was a delicate dance between human skill and fragile machinery, and the fact that it succeeded remains one of history's greatest triumphs. The symbolism of the moon landing cannot be overstated. For centuries, humanity had looked at the moon as an unreachable companion in the sky, a celestial body that governed tides and inspired poets, lovers, and dreamers. To walk upon it was to turn myth into reality. The daring of Apollo 11 bridged the gap between imagination and achievement, taking something that seemed eternal and distant and making it a place where human hands could leave marks. Even today, the mission stands as a reminder of what daring can accomplish. In an age where technology makes many things seem easy, Apollo 11 reminds us that the greatest leaps require risk, sacrifice, and vision. It required billions of dollars, thousands of engineers, years of research, and the courage of 3 men to fulfill a dream that once seemed impossible. And it tells us that if humanity could conquer the moon with the tools of the 1960s, then there is no telling what challenges we might overcome with the knowledge and resources we have now. The astronauts themselves reflected often on what the mission meant. Collins, who remained in orbit around the moon, later said that he felt both immense loneliness and profound connection. He was the only human not connected to another living being during the time Armstrong and Aldrin were on the surface. And yet, he felt united with Earth, with all of humanity watching from afar. Aldrin described the lunar surface as magnificent desolation, a place both stark and beautiful, a reminder of how fragile Earth truly is. Armstrong, ever humble, downplayed his role, insisting that the success was the result of countless people working together. Their words carried the same daring spirit as their actions, a recognition that great achievements are not the work of individuals alone, but of collective humanity. And so, when we look back on Apollo 11, we do not see merely a mission of science and exploration. We see an act of daring that redefined what it meant to be human. It was not just about reaching the moon. It was about proving that humanity could reach beyond limits. It was about demonstrating that when we dare greatly, when we risk everything in pursuit of knowledge and progress, we elevate not just technology but the human spirit itself. The moon landing stands as one of the greatest daring missions because it carried with it the possibility of absolute failure, yet it ended with absolute triumph. It showed that our destiny is not confined to the earth that bore us but stretches outward to the stars. And perhaps the most powerful legacy of Apollo 11 is this: it whispers still to every generation that follows, daring us to dream larger, to reach further, and to believe that no horizon is truly beyond our grasp. In the long history of human exploration, few endeavors capture the raw spirit of daring as vividly as the launch and journey of the Voyager probes in 1977. Unlike the Apollo missions, which reached for a destination humans could touch and see with their own eyes, the Voyager probes represented a different kind of bravery, the willingness to send fragile machines, built by human hands, into the endless abyss of interstellar space with the knowledge that no one could retrieve them if something went wrong. These twin spacecraft, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, were destined to push far beyond the planets of our solar system, carrying with them not only instruments of science, but also a message of humanity itself. They were designed to be emissaries of Earth, to endure where humans could not yet go, and to send back whispers from the edges of the known universe. The idea for Voyager was born from opportunity. In the late 1970s, a rare planetary alignment occurred, an arrangement of Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune that happens only once every 176 years. By using a technique known as gravity assist, where a spacecraft can steal a bit of momentum from a plan, its gravity to slingshot itself further into space, a single probe could, in theory, visit all four of the giant outer planets in one journey. The challenge was enormous. The spacecraft had to survive years of travel through deep space, endure radiation belts, withstand cold and isolation, and function flawlessly with no possibility of repair. The mission was ambitious, almost audacious, yet NASA embraced it, crafting two identical spacecraft, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, and preparing to send them on humanity's most daring robotic odyssey. On August 20, 1977, Voyager 2 was launched from Cape Canaveral, and just weeks later, on September 5, Voyager 1 followed. They carried with them not only cutting-edge instruments, but also something far more symbolic, the golden record. This phonograph record, plated with gold, contained sounds and images chosen to represent life on Earth, music from Bach to Chuck Berry, greetings in dozens of languages, natural sounds like waves and thunder, and even the laugh of a human being. It was an act of profound daring in itself, a gesture that suggested we might one day be heard by beings beyond our world. The golden record was not only about science, it was about hope, about sending proof that Earth exists and that it carries creatures capable of love, music, and thought. In a sense, it was humanity speaking into the cosmic void, "We are here." The voyages themselves were triumphs of both engineering and courage. Voyager 1's trajectory took it past Jupiter in 1979 and then Saturn in 1980, while Voyager 2, on a slower course, encountered Jupiter in 1979, Saturn in 1981, Uranus in 1986, and Neptune in 1989. Each flyby revealed wonders no one had ever imagined. At Jupiter, Voyager captured images of its turbulent atmosphere, including the swirling Great Red Spot, a storm larger than Earth itself that had been raging for centuries. More astonishingly, it discovered volcanic activity on Io, one of Jupiter's moons, making it the first evidence of active volcanism beyond Earth. At Saturn, Voyager revealed the intricate structure of its rings, countless icy particles dancing in delicate patterns influenced by moons and gravity. At Uranus, it unveiled a tilted planet that rolled like a ball on its side, cloaked in a pale cyan haze. At Neptune, Voyager 2 revealed supersonic winds, massive storms like the Great Dark Spot, and Triton, a moon that belched nitrogen geysers into space. These discoveries were not just scientific milestones, they were acts of daring imagination. Before Voyager, the outer planets were faint dots in telescopes, mysterious and unreachable. With Voyager, they became worlds with character, landscapes, storms, and secrets. Humanity had, for the first time, seen up close the vast neighbors of our solar system. It was as if a curtain had been pulled back, revealing the majesty of the universe. The daring of the Voyager mission was not only in its initial goals, but also in its endurance. The spacecraft were built to last only a few years, yet they kept going, year after year, defying expectations. Long after they had passed the outer planets, they continued to function, their instruments sending faint signals across billions of miles. Each transmission took hours to reach Earth, traveling at the speed of light, yet the spacecraft endured, powered by their nuclear generators. Engineers nursed them along carefully, turning off instruments one by one to conserve energy, improvising ways to keep them alive. Fact that they are still operating more than 4 decades after launch is itself a testament to human daring, designing machines not only for the moment but for a future beyond anyone's ability to predict. Perhaps the most daring aspect of Voyager's mission was its final destiny, to leave the solar system altogether. In 2012, Voyager 1 crossed into interstellar space, becoming the first human-made object to do so. Voyager 2 followed in 2018. They now drift in the vast emptiness between stars, their faint beacons still reaching Earth. They are messengers that will outlast us all, traveling silently for billions of years, long after Earth itself may be gone. To imagine this is to confront the ultimate daring, humanity casting something of itself into eternity, knowing that it may never return, knowing that its audience may not even exist. The golden record makes their mission more than science, it makes it symbolic. The record was designed to last 1 billion years, a time span far beyond human civilization's history. It contains greetings from children, music from across cultures, images of landscapes, and diagrams of human anatomy. The daring of including it lies in its humility, the recognition that humanity is small in the cosmic scale, but also worthy of being remembered. Should an alien civilization ever encounter the Voyagers, the record will serve as our introduction. It is a message of peace, a bold declaration that even in our struggles, we reached out beyond ourselves. Voyager's daring also lay in its reliance on trust. Once launched, the spacecraft were on their own. No astronaut could repair them, no mission could retrieve them, no human hand could guide them. They were designed to navigate, to take photographs, to collect data, and to transmit across unimaginable distances. The engineers who built them had to trust that their creation would endure in the hostile void, and remarkably it did. The radioisotope thermoelectric generators kept producing power, the antennas kept pointing home, and the instruments kept functioning long past their expected lifetimes. This endurance speaks not only of technical brilliance, but of a daring belief in human craftsmanship. Culturally, the Voyagers became symbols of what humanity could achieve when it dared to dream beyond immediate horizons. They inspired writers, poets, filmmakers, and ordinary people to think of humanity as part of a larger cosmic story. They reminded us that exploration is not always about planting flags or claiming territory. It is about reaching out, seeking knowledge, and leaving behind traces of ourselves. In a way, the Voyagers embody humanity's longing for connection, our refusal to remain confined to one small world, and our willingness to risk everything to know what lies beyond. Even today, the Voyagers continue to astonish. Though most of their instruments have been turned off, they still send back data about the interstellar medium, the space between stars. Their signals, now unimaginably faint, are still caught by giant radio dishes on Earth, such as those of NASA's Deep Space Network. When those signals arrive, they have traveled more than 14 billion miles, taking nearly a full day to cross the Gulf. And yet, when scientists decode them, they are messages from machines that humanity built in the 1970s, still alive, still exploring. That persistence is itself an act of daring resilience. To reflect on Voyager is to reflect on what it means to be human. Unlike Apollo, which was about human footsteps, Voyager is about human fingerprints. It represents our willingness to send part of ourselves where we cannot yet go. It shows that daring is not always about physical presence, but about intellectual courage, the courage to build, to launch, to let go, and to trust that our creation will carry our spirit further than we can imagine. The Voyagers will not stop. Long after their power dies, they will continue coasting through interstellar space, silent but eternal. Long after our cities have crumbled and our languages have changed, they will still be out there, bearing the golden record, carrying the laughter of a child, the notes of Beethoven, the greetings of humanity. They will outlast us, outlast the Earth itself, and drift until perhaps one day they are found. In that possibility lies the most daring element of all, the belief that what we do now matters not just for today, not just for tomorrow, but for millions of years to come. So when we speak of the most daring space missions of all time, we must honor Voyager, not because it carried humans, but because it carried humanity. It dared to look beyond the edges of our solar system, dared to confront the infinite, dared to whisper into the cosmos that we exist. It was not only a scientific mission, but a philosophical one, a declaration that humanity is more than its conflicts, more than its borders, more than its limitations. Voyager is a message in a bottle cast into the ocean of the universe, an act of daring faith that someone, somewhere, someday might hear us, and perhaps that is the essence of daring, to act not knowing if there will ever be an answer, to reach out not for certainty but for possibility. Voyager dared in this way, and in doing so it became immortal. When we think of daring in space exploration, our minds often go to human footsteps on the moon or to spacecraft venturing into the interstellar dark. Yet there is another chapter, equally daring in its ambition and execution, the quest to land machines on Mars and command them to explore on our behalf. The story of Mars rovers is one of ingenuity and audacity, of engineers and scientists daring to transform a distant world from a faint red dot into a place whose valleys, rocks, and skies we can see almost as if we stood there ourselves. To send a rover to Mars is not a simple task. It is a feat that balances on the edge of impossibility, for Mars is both alluring and treacherous. Its thin atmosphere makes landing spacecraft extraordinarily difficult. Its dust storms threaten to smother equipment. Its freezing nights test the endurance of electronics, and the vast distance ensures that every command from Earth takes minutes to arrive. To dare to explore Mars with rovers was to gamble with billions of dollars, decades of work, and the fragile hope of discovery. And yet, time and again, humanity has sent rovers there, each one venturing further, lasting longer, and discovering more than anyone thought possible. The earliest attempts to reach Mars were filled with failure. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, both the United States and the Soviet Union tried repeatedly to send probes and landers, but most fell silent before reaching the surface. The first true breakthrough came with NASA's Viking program in 1976, when two landers successfully touched down and returned the first clear images from the Martian surface. These landers were stationary, fixed in place, and though their discoveries were remarkable, they revealed the limitations of immobility. Mars is a vast planet with landscapes stretching like continents, and a lander fixed in one spot could only study its immediate surroundings. The dreams soon grew. What if we could send not just a lander, but a machine that could roam, a robotic geologist on wheels, capable of venturing across terrain, climbing rocks, and seeking clues about Mars' history? That dream gave birth to the rover era. The first to attempt this was Sojourner, part of the Mars Pathfinder mission in 1997. Small, no larger than a microwave oven, Sojourner was modest in scope but bold in concept. It carried instruments to analyze rocks and soil, moving short distances under remote control. For the first time, humanity saw a machine roll across an alien landscape, its tracks etched into the rusty soil. It was a sight that stirred something primal. Here was evidence that human ingenuity could give movement to machines millions of miles away, as if extending our limbs across the void. Sojourner lasted far longer than planned, proving that rovers could survive and thrive. But the true daring began with the twin rovers Spirit and Opportunity, launched in 2003 and landing on Mars in January 2004. Their mission was ambitious, to search for evidence that Mars once had water, the essential ingredient for life. Each was expected to last 90 days. Few believed they would endure much longer. Mars, after all, is unforgiving, its dust storms capable of blocking sunlight for weeks, its temperatures plunging so low that electronics could freeze. Yet Spirit lasted 6 years, and Opportunity endured more than 14, covering 28 miles and sending back breathtaking panoramas. Their longevity was a triumph of engineering and a testament to resilience. Spirit climbed hills, studied rocks that suggested ancient water flows, and eventually became stuck in soft soil, unable to move but still sending valuable data until its last breath. Opportunity pressed onward across plains and craters, uncovering minerals that could only form in the presence of water. Its mission became not just science but legend, a saga of survival in the harshest conditions. When a planet-wide dust storm finally silenced Opportunity in 2018, millions mourned as if a friend had been lost. The rover had become more than a machine, it had become a symbol of endurance and daring exploration. Even as Spirit and Opportunity roamed, the dream of doing more grew stronger. Mars is a world of mountains taller than Everest, canyons deeper than the Grand Canyon, and landscapes shaped by forces that might have included flowing rivers and seas. To understand it fully required a new kind of rover, bigger, smarter, more capable. That vision became Curiosity, launched in 2011 and landing in August 2012 with a drama that earned the nickname 7 Minutes of Terror. Because Mars is so far away, engineers on Earth could not control the landing in real time. The spacecraft had to execute its entire descent sequence autonomously, entering the atmosphere at hypersonic speed, deploying a supersonic parachute, firing rockets, and finally lowering the rover on cables in a maneuver known as the sky crane. The complexity was staggering. A single malfunction could have destroyed years of work. As Curiosity hurtled toward Mars, engineers could only wait, powerless to intervene, knowing that by the time radio signals reached Earth, the rover would either be alive or shattered on the surface. Against all odds, it succeeded. The cheers and tears in mission control that day were not just relief. They were the release of years of tension, proof that daring had once again prevailed. Curiosity, the size of a car, became a rolling laboratory. It carried instruments to drill rocks, analyze chemistry, and even study radiation levels to prepare for future human missions. Its discoveries reshaped our understanding of Mars. It found ancient riverbeds and evidence of lakes that could have supported microbial life. It detected organic molecules, the building blocks of life. It revealed that Mars was once a planet not unlike Earth, wet, dynamic, and potentially habitable. Its cameras sent back sweeping panoramas of alien landscapes, images that seemed both familiar and foreign. To see Martian sunsets tinged blue or dust devils swirling across plains was to glimpse another world, not as fiction, but as fact. The daring spirit of Mars exploration did not stop with Curiosity. In 2021, NASA landed Perseverance, a rover even more advanced, tasked not only with studying geology but with preparing for the future. Perseverance carried instruments to produce oxygen from the Martian atmosphere, a test that could one day support human colonists. It drilled and cached samples that may be returned to Earth by future missions, a daring vision of interplanetary collaboration, and most astonishingly, Perseverance carried with it a small helicopter named Ingenuity. No one knew if flight was possible on Mars. The atmosphere is only 1% as dense as Earth's, making lift nearly impossible. Yet in April 2021, Ingenuity rose into the Martian air, hovered, and landed again, the first powered flight on another planet. It was a moment that echoed the Wright brothers' first flight, daring in its simplicity but historic in its implication. Mars, once a world of mystery, had not only been touched by rovers but now flown by human ingenuity. Every rover mission has been a gamble. The distances involved mean that any failure is final. Mars is littered with the wrecks of missions that did not make it, lost landers, failed probes, silent hardware. Yet the successes stand as proof of human daring. To land on Mars is to thread a needle through layers of risk. The thin atmosphere that provides too little braking, the rough terrain that offers no guarantees, the dust that can choke solar panels, the cold that can kill batteries. That humanity has done this repeatedly, each time with more ambition, is one of the great testaments to daring exploration. The impact of the Mars rovers extends beyond science. They have captured the imagination of people across the globe. School children have followed their progress, learning about geology and space through the eyes of machines millions of miles away. Engineers have named rocks and craters, giving personality to landscapes once thought lifeless. Social media accounts, written in the first person as if by the rovers themselves, turned these machines into companions of humanity, explorers with voices. People wept when Opportunity's final transmission was paraphrased as, "My battery is low and it's getting dark." Though a poetic interpretation, it captured the sense that these rovers were not mere machines but pioneers embodying our collective will to explore. Daring, in the context of Mars rovers, is not just about technical achievement but about vision. Each mission has been a rehearsal for the day when humans themselves will step onto the Martian soil. The rovers have taught us about hazards, resources, and conditions, preparing the path for eventual human exploration. They represent the bridge between imagination and reality. Without them, human footsteps on Mars would remain science fiction. With them, the dream inches closer to truth. In the end, the Mars rover missions embody the very essence of daring, risking failure to achieve discovery, sending fragile machines into hostile realms, and trusting that they will carry forward our curiosity. They are the quiet explorers, the tireless wanderers, the extensions of human hands and minds across millions of miles. They have revealed Mars not as a distant star in the night sky, but as a place, real, tangible, waiting. And they remind us that daring is not only about leaping into the unknown, but about enduring, persisting, and refusing to stop until the horizon itself has been reached. The tracks of these rovers on Martian soil may one day be joined by the footprints of humans. But even if that future takes decades to arrive, the rovers will always stand as the first ambassadors, the ones who dared to go first, who rolled across alien plains and turned mystery into knowledge. In their daring journeys, they carried not only instruments but dreams, showing us that Mars is not a distant impossibility but a frontier awaiting us. The story of the Space Shuttle program is one of the most daring, complex, and bittersweet chapters in the history of human space exploration. It was born from ambition, engineered through ingenuity, and carried forward by the unshakable belief that humanity could build a spacecraft capable of flying to space, returning safely, and then doing it all over again. No longer would rockets be single-use machines that burned in one glorious burst only to fall back into the ocean or disintegrate in the atmosphere. The shuttle was imagined as a vehicle that would normalize space travel, as reusable as an airplane, able to ferry people, satellites, and equipment into orbit routinely. At its heart, the Space Shuttle program embodied humanity's determination to blend practicality with exploration, to turn what once seemed miraculous into a repeatable reality. Yet, daring visions often walk hand in hand with great risks, and the shuttle's history reflected both triumph and tragedy. The program began in the 1970s, in the aftermath of the Apollo moon missions. While Apollo had placed humans on another world, it was an extraordinarily expensive and resource-heavy endeavor, each Saturn V rocket discarded after a single launch. NASA needed a new vision, one that promised sustainability. The Space Shuttle was conceived as that vision. It was ambitious in design, a winged orbiter that looked like a plane, a massive external fuel tank, and two reusable solid rocket boosters. Unlike Apollo, which had captivated the world with single-use rockets, the shuttle was meant to serve as the workhorse of space. It would launch like a rocket but land like an airplane, capable of gliding back through the atmosphere and touching down on a runway. It was humanity's first true spaceplane, and its engineering was unlike anything ever attempted before. The first shuttle, Columbia, took flight on April 12, 1981, carrying two astronauts, John Young and Robert Crippen, into orbit. It was a bold test because Columbia's first mission was not an unmanned flight but fully crewed. Engineers and astronauts alike accepted the immense risks of flying a brand new spacecraft. That daring gamble paid off, and the Space Shuttle program was officially born. Over the following decades, a fleet of orbiters, Columbia, Challenger, Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavour, would carry astronauts into space more than 130 times. Each mission had its own daring goals. The shuttles deployed satellites that enabled modern telecommunications, weather forecasting, and global positioning systems. They carried up sections of the International Space Station, piece by piece, turning humanity's dream of a permanent orbital outpost into reality. Perhaps one of the shuttle program's greatest achievements was the repair and servicing of the Hubble Space Telescope. Launched in 1990, Hubble at first delivered blurry images due to a flawed mirror. Yet, thanks to the daring vision of the shuttle program, astronauts aboard Endeavour flew to Hubble in 1993 and conducted an extraordinary repair mission in orbit. They replaced instruments, installed corrective optics, and transformed Hubble into one of the most important scientific tools in history, giving humanity breathtaking images of distant galaxies, nebulae, and the very origins of the cosmos. Without the shuttle's versatility, Hubble may have remained a failed experiment. Instead, it became one of science's crown jewels. The shuttle program also carried with it the dream of accessibility. While spaceflight had long seemed reserved for a select few test pilots and scientists, the shuttle opened the door for a broader range of people to fly. Teachers, doctors, engineers, and scientists from different countries were brought aboard. Payload specialists and international astronauts joined missions, making space exploration feel more global and inclusive. For a time, it seemed that the shuttle would indeed fulfill its promise of making spaceflight routine, as missions occurred multiple times a year. The idea of reusable spacecraft seemed to transform science fiction into science fact. Yet the shuttle's daring ambition carried a heavy price. 2 disasters scarred the program forever, reminding humanity of the thin line between triumph and tragedy in space exploration. On January 28, 1986, the shuttle Challenger lifted off on what was supposed to be a routine mission. Just 73 seconds into flight, the shuttle broke apart, killing all 7 crew members. Among them was Krista McAuliffe, a teacher chosen to be the first civilian astronaut. The nation and the world were devastated as millions had watched the launch live. The cause was traced to an O-ring failure in one of the solid rocket boosters, worsened by unusually cold weather. The Challenger disaster highlighted the dangers of treating spaceflight as ordinary when, in truth, it remained one of the most dangerous undertakings known to humanity. 17 years later, on February 1, 2003, tragedy struck again with the loss of Columbia. As the shuttle re-entered Earth's atmosphere, it disintegrated, killing its 7 astronauts. The cause was traced back to launch, when a piece of foam insulation broke off the external tank and struck the orbiter's wing, creating a breach that proved fatal during re-entry. Once again, the world mourned, and once again, space exploration revealed its unforgiving risks. The Columbia disaster forced NASA and the world to reconsider the shuttle's safety, costs, and future. Despite these tragedies, the Space Shuttle program also symbolized resilience. Each loss shook NASA to its core, but both times the program rose again. Investigations were conducted, safety measures improved, and the resolve to honor the fallen astronauts by continuing their mission carried NASA forward. The shuttle program endured for 3 decades, accomplishing feats no other spacecraft in history had matched. It proved that humanity could not only venture into orbit, but also live and work there, building structures like the ISS and performing complex repairs in space. Yet the shuttle was not without its limitations. It never achieved the cost-effectiveness initially promised. Each launch remained extraordinarily expensive and risky, and as the years went on, new technologies outpaced the shuttle's design. The program was officially retired in 2011 when Atlantis flew the final mission, marking the end of an era. Watching that shuttle return to Earth for the last time was both inspiring and heartbreaking. It was a reminder that even daring programs must eventually give way to new ideas, new visions, and new technologies, but the legacy of the shuttle endures. It showed the world what was possible when daring met determination. It created a generation of astronauts who lived and worked in space for extended periods. It carried satellites that transformed human life on Earth and built a space station that continues to orbit today. It gave us the tools to peer deeper into the universe than ever before, and demonstrated that human beings could assemble complex structures beyond our planet. Most importantly, it proved that humanity could dream beyond what seemed practical and make that dream a reality. The Space Shuttle program was daring because it challenged convention. It dared to create a reusable spacecraft. It dared to push astronauts into new roles as builders, repairers, and explorers of the orbital frontier. It dared to face the devastation of loss and continue forward anyway. and it dared to inspire millions of people around the world to believe that space was not just a destination for a few heroic pioneers, but a frontier for all of humanity. In reflecting on the shuttle's story, we see a microcosm of the human spirit itself, ambitious, flawed, resilient, and endlessly courageous. The shuttles may no longer fly, but their legacy soars every time we look at the International Space Station circling above, every time we gaze at the breathtaking images from Hubble, and every time new generations of rockets and spacecraft rise into the sky. The shuttle dared, and though it stumbled, it carried humanity forward in ways we are still discovering. The most daring space missions of all time are not measured only in miles traveled or planets reached, but in the audacity to believe in something greater than ourselves. The Space Shuttle program, with all its triumphs and tragedies, embodied that audacity. It proved that while space may be unforgiving, the human will to explore is unbreakable. It left us not just with memories of launches and landings, but with a legacy of daring that will inspire the missions yet to come. In the modern era of space exploration, daring has taken on new dimensions. Where once the boldness was about sending humans to the moon for the first time or building a reusable shuttle system, now it is about pushing boundaries with technologies that were once only dreams. It is about transforming the way rockets are launched and recovered, constructing telescopes capable of peering into the very beginning of time, and preparing humanity to return to the moon and journey to Mars. The modern achievements of space exploration demonstrate not only technological innovation but also a daring mindset, a willingness to challenge old limitations, take risks, and reimagine humanity's place in the cosmos. One of the most remarkable and daring advancements has been the rise of reusable rockets, most famously achieved by SpaceX. For decades, rockets were treated like fireworks. Once they blasted into space, their stages either fell into the ocean or burned up in the atmosphere, never to be used again. This approach made launches enormously expensive, limiting the frequency and scope of space missions. SpaceX, under Elon Musk's leadership, dared to ask a seemingly simple yet audacious question. What if rockets could land and be used again, just like airplanes? The idea sounded almost absurd to many seasoned aerospace engineers, given the complexities of controlling a massive rocket booster, returning through Earth's atmosphere, and landing upright on a floating drone ship in the middle of the ocean. Yet, after years of failed attempts, explosions, and setbacks, SpaceX succeeded. The first Falcon 9 booster successfully landed in 2015. And from there the company has refined the technology, now routinely recovering and reusing rockets. This achievement has drastically reduced the cost of spaceflight, opened the door to more frequent missions, and inspired a new wave of competition and innovation in the private space sector. The daring behind this innovation was not only technological but philosophical. It redefined what space travel could look like and proved that risk-taking could yield revolutionary results. Alongside reusable rockets, another daring modern triumph has been the deployment and operation of the James Webb Space Telescope (JWST). If the Hubble telescope changed the way humanity saw the universe, JWST dared to take that vision to a whole new level. Positioned nearly 1,000,000 miles from Earth at the second Lagrange point L2, JWST is the most advanced telescope ever built, designed to peer into infrared light and reveal the earliest galaxies that formed after the Big Bang. Its very construction was daring. The telescope carries a segmented golden mirror 5 meters across, far larger than anything launched before, and a sunshield the size of a tennis court to protect its sensitive instruments from heat. To fit inside the launch vehicle, JWST had to be folded up like an intricate piece of origami, with over 300 single points of potential failure during its deployment in space. One mistake could have meant a catastrophic loss after decades of planning and billions of dollars invested. Yet, in late 2021 and early 2022, the telescope successfully unfolded and began sending back breathtaking images. For the first time, humanity could glimpse galaxies as they appeared over 13 billion years ago, study the atmospheres of exoplanets for signs of habitability, and explore the origins of stars and planetary systems. JWST's success was daring not only because of its complexity, but because it represented humanity's audacity to ask the most profound questions. Where did we come from, and are we alone? But the daring achievements of modern space missions extend even further. Humanity is now preparing to return to the moon through NASA's Artemis program. While Apollo represented the first footsteps on lunar soil, Artemis is daring to imagine a sustainable presence on the moon. The program's goals include not just planting flags but building habitats, developing resource utilization technologies, and learning how to survive on another world for extended periods. Artemis also carries symbolic daring. By committing to send the first woman and the first person of color to the moon, it expands the human story of exploration to be more inclusive and representative of all humanity. This return to the moon is not the end goal but a stepping stone, a proving ground for the ultimate daring mission of the modern era, sending humans to Mars. The idea of Mars exploration has captivated human imagination for centuries. In recent years, that dream has taken tangible form. Robotic missions like Curiosity and Perseverance have prepared the way, sending back images and data about the Martian surface, atmosphere, and potential resources. Perseverance even carries the first experimental system to produce oxygen from the Martian atmosphere, and a helicopter, Ingenuity, which proved that powered flight is possible on another planet. These missions are daring in themselves, representing cutting-edge engineering and a willingness to attempt the unprecedented. Yet they are also paving the path for the even greater daring leap of placing humans on Mars. A mission fraught with risks but filled with the promise of making humanity a multi-planetary species. Private companies are playing an increasingly central role in this daring new era. Blue Origin, founded by Jeff Bezos, envisions a future where millions of people can live and work in space. Rocket Lab, Relativity Space, and others are daring to innovate with new technologies like 3D printed rockets, smaller and more efficient launch systems, and alternative fuels. These companies are taking bold risks in the hope of carving out humanity's future in the stars. Their daring is not only in their technology, but in their belief that space is no longer solely the domain of governments, but a frontier for human enterprise. Another daring frontier is planetary defense and exploration of near-Earth objects. In 2022, NASA's DART mission double asteroid redirection test successfully altered the orbit of an asteroid by deliberately crashing into it, a historic first demonstration that humanity might one day be able to protect Earth from catastrophic impacts. This mission, though small in scale, represents a daring shift in mindset. Humanity is not only exploring space, but also beginning to take responsibility for defending itself from cosmic threats. The audacity of attempting to redirect a celestial body reflects a growing confidence in our ability to shape not just our future on Earth, but our relationship with the solar system itself. The daring spirit of modern space missions also lies in their ability to inspire unity. The International Space Station, ISS, though launched in the previous era, continues to be a testament to international cooperation. In an age often marked by division, the ISS demonstrates what can happen when nations set aside differences to pursue common goals. Astronauts from multiple countries live and work together in orbit, conducting experiments that advance medicine, technology, and understanding of life itself. The ISS is daring not just as a technological achievement, but as a social one. It dares to prove that collaboration across borders is possible in pursuit of something greater than any single nation. At the heart of these modern achievements lies a recurring theme: the refusal to accept limits. Humanity dares to ask questions others might deem unanswerable and attempts tasks others might deem impossible. The reuse of rockets, the deployment of a nearly flawless space telescope, the ambition to colonize the Moon and Mars, the effort to defend Earth from asteroids, and the expansion of space access through private innovation, all of these reflect a spirit that refuses to be bound by Earth alone. What makes these modern missions so daring is not only the scale of technology, but the mindset that drives them. Each represents a conscious decision to embrace risk in pursuit of reward, to push boundaries not for immediate gain but for long-term vision. SpaceX could have settled for making launches marginally cheaper, but instead dared to revolutionize the very model of rocketry. NASA could have rested on Hubble's success, but instead built JWST to unlock a deeper cosmic truth. Artemis could aim only to repeat Apollo, but instead strives to build a permanent foothold on another world. These are not safe choices. They are bold leaps into uncertainty. As humanity looks toward the future, the daring of today will be remembered as the foundation of tomorrow. The rockets landing themselves on ocean platforms, the telescope gazing into the universe's infancy, the astronauts preparing to return to the moon, and the robotic pioneers exploring Mars will be seen as stepping stones on the path toward a multi-planetary existence. The modern achievements remind us that daring is not a thing of the past. It is alive, it is evolving, and it is carrying us into a new chapter of exploration. Space will always be dangerous. There will always be risks of failure, disaster, and loss. But daring has never been about guarantees. It has always been about courage. The courage to dream, to try, to risk, and to rise again when setbacks occur. The modern era of space exploration is a testament to this courage. From reusable rockets to telescopes unfolding like golden flowers in the void, from humans preparing to return to the moon to robotic scouts laying tracks on Martian soil, humanity is once again declaring to the universe, we will not stop at what is known. We will not be confined by the boundaries of our world. We will dare again and again to step into the unknown. When we reflect on the most daring space missions of all time, it is tempting to focus entirely on the technology, the rockets, the spacecraft, the telescopes, the rovers. Yet behind every launch, behind every mission, there is something far greater at work, the indomitable human spirit. Technology is simply the vessel, but the courage, vision, and resilience of people are the forces that truly carry exploration forward. The human spirit of exploration is the common thread that links Apollo to Artemis, Voyager to the James Webb Space Telescope, and the first satellites to the dream of living on Mars. It is this spirit that has always dared humanity to look at the stars and see not unreachable points of light, but destinations waiting to be reached. The human spirit of exploration is rooted in curiosity. From the earliest days, people gazed at the heavens and asked questions. What are those lights in the sky? Where do they come from? Could there be other worlds like ours? Ancient civilizations studied the stars to guide navigation, farming, and calendars, but the stars also stirred a longing to go beyond. This yearning to know more is not a recent phenomenon, but a timeless part of what it means to be human. When Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space in 1961, he was not just a Soviet cosmonaut completing a political mission. He was the embodiment of humanity's oldest desire to see what lies beyond the horizon. His famous words, "I see Earth, it is so beautiful," were a reminder that exploration is not only about discovery, but about changing how we see ourselves. What makes the human spirit of exploration daring is its willingness to embrace risk. Every astronaut who has climbed into a spacecraft knew there was a chance they might not return. Every engineer who approved a mission knew the possibility of failure was real. Yet the willingness to face these dangers stems from the belief that some goals are worth the risk. When Neil Armstrong took his first steps on the moon, millions watched with awe not just because he stood on lunar soil, but because his actions represented the triumph of human courage over fear. Exploration is never safe, and yet humans continue to do it because deep inside there is an understanding that without risk, there is no growth, no progress, no greatness. The human spirit is also about resilience. Space exploration has faced devastating losses. The Challenger disaster in 1986, the Columbia disaster in 2003, the lives lost in test flights and training accidents. Each of these tragedies could have ended humanity's pursuit of the stars. It would have been easy to say the risk was too high, the cost too great, but each time humanity chose differently. Each time we grieved, we learned, and we rose again. That is the essence of the spirit of exploration. It does not crumble under failure, but grows stronger. The very act of returning to flight after tragedy is itself a daring affirmation of the human will. The daring spirit is not only about astronauts and scientists, but also about ordinary people who believe in extraordinary dreams. The engineers who worked countless nights designing systems that had never existed before, the mission planners who charted courses through the unknown, the mathematicians who calculated trajectories by hand, the families who supported loved ones knowing the risks, all of these people represent the collective human will that makes exploration possible. Without their dedication, no rocket would ever leave the pad, no rover would ever roll across alien soil, and no telescope would ever unfold in the darkness of space. The human spirit of exploration is not confined to a few heroic figures but shared by all who dare to dream and work toward something greater. Another defining element of this spirit is imagination. Before rockets could fly, they had to be imagined. Before humans could walk on the moon, someone had to picture it happening. Imagination allows humanity to see beyond limitations and to treat impossibilities as temporary. Science fiction has often inspired science fact. Writers like Jules Verne, Arthur C. Clarke, and Isaac Asimov dreamed of lunar landings, satellites, and space stations long before they existed. Their visions planted seeds in the minds of future scientists and engineers who transformed imagination into reality. The daring spirit is the bridge between dream and accomplishment. It is the force that refuses to let imagination remain fantasy and instead insists on making it real. This spirit is also profoundly collective. Exploration is rarely the work of one individual. It is the collaboration of nations, institutions, and cultures. The International Space Station stands as a living example of what the human spirit can accomplish when people work together across borders. For over 2 decades, astronauts from the United States, Russia, Europe, Japan, and Canada have lived and worked side by side in orbit. In times of political tension on Earth, the station has remained a symbol of cooperation. This willingness to unite for a shared vision is daring in itself because it demands trust, humility, and a recognition that the human future in space belongs to all, not just a few. At its heart, the daring spirit of exploration is about hope. It is about believing that tomorrow can be greater than today, that humanity can expand beyond Earth, and that the pursuit of knowledge can improve life for all. The technologies developed for spaceflight have already transformed daily life. Satellite communications, GPS, weather forecasting, medical advancements, and countless innovations came from humanity's drive to explore. But beyond technology, the hope carried by space missions is perhaps their most powerful gift. When people saw Earth from space for the first time, it changed the way we thought about our planet. Suddenly, borders seemed insignificant, and the fragility of our world became clear. Space exploration dares us not only to dream of other worlds, but also to cherish and protect our own. The daring spirit is also about legacy. Each generation of explorers builds upon the work of those who came before. The Apollo astronauts inspired the shuttle era. The shuttle astronauts inspired the engineers of the Artemis program. Today's robotic explorers on Mars will one day guide human footsteps on its surface. This continuity shows that exploration is not a single event but a chain of courage stretching across time. Every daring mission is a gift to the future, a message that says, "We were here and we dared so that you may go further." The human spirit of exploration is daring because it refuses to accept limits. It looks at the speed of light, the vastness of galaxies, the challenges of living in space, and says, "We will try anyway." It is the same spirit that drove humans to cross oceans, climb mountains, and venture into unknown lands on Earth. Space is simply the next horizon, and like all the horizons before, it calls to something deep within us. To ignore that call would be to deny part of what makes us human. What makes this spirit so enduring is that it belongs to everyone, even those who will never leave Earth share in the daring. A child looking up at the night sky, an artist painting visions of Mars colonies, a teacher explaining the phases of the moon, a scientist studying exoplanet, all are part of this collective spirit. Exploration is not only the act of leaving Earth, but also the act of expanding human understanding and imagination. In this sense, every person who dares to dream contributes to the great adventure. As we stand at the edge of new frontiers, preparing to return to the moon, to step onto Mars, and to send probes into the outer reaches of the solar system, the human spirit of exploration will be more important than ever. The challenges ahead are immense. Surviving on another world will demand technologies and solutions we have not yet invented. Traveling beyond Earth's orbit for long durations will test the limits of body and mind. Yet history assures us that the daring spirit will not be defeated. It will adapt, it will overcome, and it will press forward. When we talk about the most daring space missions, we are not only talking about spacecraft, but about people, their courage, their curiosity, their resilience, and their hope. These are the forces that propelled Apollo to the moon, Voyager to the edge of interstellar space, Hubble to clarity, and the shuttle to orbit again and again. These are the forces that gave birth to reusable rockets, to the James Webb Space Telescope, to Artemis and Perseverance. And these are the forces that will one day carry us to Mars and perhaps even further, to the moons of Jupiter, Saturn, and beyond. The daring human spirit of exploration reminds us that the universe is not something we merely observe from afar. It is a place we belong to, a place we are destined to explore. The risks are great, the obstacles enormous, but the drive within us is greater still. We explore because it defines us, because it lifts us beyond survival into meaning, because it dares us to be more than what we are. And so long as there are stars in the sky and questions unanswered, the human spirit will never stop reaching, never stop daring, never stop exploring.